And it happened again.
Because at the Image Awards, man, it rocked, didn't it? They got up and went crazy when we did that.
Absolutely.
I couldn't believe it.
How you want to see this all resolved?
I want to see my father get credit for his work.
Marvin is suffering from diabetes, and he needs a kidney.
Meantime, the son of legendary funk singer Rick James was sentenced in Bakersfield today.
Have you ever wondered how different life can be between a father and son at the same age, especially in the world of Black R&B singers, where glamour, pressure, and turmoil never run dry? Big names, dazzling dreams, but buried deep are psychological battles and tear-soaked tragedies. This isn't just about music, it's a survival race between legends and the next generation. At the same age, they stand in different places, carry different mindsets, and pay different prices. The 21 stories I'm about to share will show you the whirlwind of light and dark in the lives of the most famous father-son pairs in R&B. Get ready, because secrets you never imagined are about to be revealed. 21. Johnny Taylor and Floyd Taylor, an R&B empire, crumbles after glory, 2 lives sunk in family tragedy and failure. Johnny Taylor, the 1970s R&B legend, brought historic success with Disco Lady, the first R&B song to go platinum, selling over 2 million copies. His name was tied to the rise of soul and disco, shining on America's biggest stages. Floyd Taylor, his son, followed in his father's musical footsteps, but sank deep into darkness, crushed by the weight of a legendary dad and a string of failures. In 1976, Johnny Taylor, at 42, was the king of R&B nights. Disco Lady not only topped the Billboard R&B chart, but also hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming a disco and R&B icon. But no one guessed that behind the dazzling stage lights was a storm of chaos. Johnny didn't just have one wife, but a lineup of women, fathering 7 kids, many out of wedlock. Fights over fatherhood, money, and duty exploded like time bombs. Some mothers accused him of neglecting his children, living wild, and failing to provide enough money or care. Things got messy, badly hurting the disco daddy image in the public's eyes. Pressure from the media and a tangled family life drove him to booze and cigarettes as an escape. His health tanked fast. High blood pressure, diabetes, and heart attacks piled up. Though he tried to keep his career alive with hits like Good Love in the 90s, Johnny lost grip on his life. In 2000, he died suddenly in Dallas from a heart attack, leaving a shattered family. The inheritance saga turned into a drawn-out war between his kids, many left out of the will, deepening family rifts. A brilliant career ended in a lingering family tragedy. Just 4 years before Johnny's death, in 1996, Floyd Taylor hit 42, the age his father shone brightest. Floyd chose R&B/soul, singing at small venues, releasing songs through Malaco Records, a label his dad once worked with. But Johnny's shadow loomed too large. Floyd survived with a loyal southern U.S. fanbase, never breaking into the wider spotlight. The mental weight pressed like a mountain on his shoulders. Constant comparisons drove him to doubt his talent, battling a fierce inner struggle between the hunger to shine and harsh reality. He pushed on, dropping Legacy in 1999 and You Still Got It in 2006, but couldn't escape his father's shadow. Friends revealed he faced dark depths of depression and insecurity. Cash struggles as traditional R&B faded to hip-hop, and modern pop left him wobbling. Juggling life and raising kids on a tight budget made him want to quit. Then, tragedy followed tragedy. In 2014, Floyd died suddenly at 60 from a heart stroke, like his father, a sad end for someone expected to carry the Taylor empire. 20. Eddie Levert and Gerald Levert, 2 brilliant lives in tragedy from R&B heights to the depths. Eddie Levert, leader of the legendary OJs, was a Philly soul icon with hits like Love Train, lifting the group to the top of Billboard R&B in 1972. His son, Gerald Levert, followed with the group Levert and a solo career, a blazing R&B star of the 90s, loved for his emotional voice and Grammy nods. But behind the glory lay painful family tragedies. In 1972, Eddie Levert, at 30, was at his career peak, driving the OJs to explode with Backstabbers and Love Train. Packed tours, fame spreading across the U.S. and beyond, money rolling in. Everyone thought Eddie's life was pure glamour, but backstage were lonely days, neglecting family. Grueling schedules left little time with his kids. Gerald and Sean grew up with a faint father figure. Family hurt and tension simmered for years. The lure of booze and tour parties pushed his marriage to Martha Levert to the edge, never divorcing, but the strain showed daily. Eddie later admitted regret, but the past couldn't be undone. By the 90s, Gerald Levert emerged as a known R&B star. In 1996, the album Father and Son with his dad marked a legacy link. But Gerald's life wasn't simple. 3 kids with 3 women, lawsuits over child support and custody tangled his name in offstage scandals. The press dug into fights and public rifts. Gerald wrestled with health, weight ballooning, alcohol addiction, and unbearable pressure under his father's giant shadow. Despite hits, his career couldn't heal his inner wounds. The deepest pain was a tragic end. Gerald died suddenly in 2006, just 40, from a drug overdose, leaving endless shock and grief. 2 years later, Sean, Eddie's other son, passed at 39. Eddie Levert, now aged, still performs but never escapes the lonely guilt weighing him down, sunk in depression from life's worst losses. 19, Marvin Gaye and Marvin Gaye III, peak legend and a family tragedy. Spanning decades. Marvin Gaye, the man who revolutionized R&B with 1971's What's Going On, wasn't just a music icon, but the center of a messy family with quiet scandals. His son, Marvin Gaye III, grew up in his famous father's huge shadow, trying to carve his own music path, but torn by brutal family pressure and a complex legacy. In 1971, at 32, Marvin Gaye launched What's Going On, a musical peek and a weighty voice on war, injustice, and the environment. Songs like What's Going On and Mercy, Mercy Me became icons, vaulting him to fame with awards and America's biggest stages. But inside, the glory was a chaotic life, full of knots. Marvin wed Anna Gordy, sister of Motown boss Berry Gordy, but love cracked fast from affairs and addiction. Amid the strain, Marvin fathered Marvin Gaye III out of wedlock with Denise Gordy, Anna's niece. Family life grew tangled. In 1973, Anna filed for divorce, sparking tearful legal battles over custody and cash. Marvin sank into cocaine, finances drained, spirit broken, yet still crafted masterpieces. Marvin's peak tragedy hit in 1984. After years of drug struggles and broken marriages, his own father shot him dead in a fierce fight at their Los Angeles home, a day before his 45th birthday. The music world reeled. Fans were stunned. Marvin's father was convicted of manslaughter, but the family's pain never faded. His son, Marvin Gaye III, at 32 in 1997, struggled in a music world that ignored him. Playing small LA clubs, he never found real success. His family grew messier as birth mom Denise and adoptive mom Anna clashed over custody, identity, and estate control. Financial pressure loomed. Fights over his dad's hit song rights dragged through courts, thrusting Marvin III into public spats, though he dodged personal scandals. The pain of losing his dad, family legacy weight, and duty made his life an endless battle. At 60, Marvin Gaye III still quietly fights past ghosts, guarding a legacy while wrestling to find himself. 18. Clarence Carter and Clarence Carter Jr., From Glory Days to Family Darkness and Unfinished Dreams. Clarence Carter, the gruff-voiced R&B soul star of the 70s, stormed the scene with the touching hit Patches, a chart topper that earned fame and a Grammy nod. His son, Clarence Carter Jr., carried his dad's legacy, but drifted in small clubs, trading dreams for a harsh life and the weight of a legend's shadow. In 1970, at 34, Clarence Carter was a music sensation, sought after across the U.S. Patches wasn't just a hit, but a vivid tale of a poor boy bearing family burdens, choking up listeners. Amazingly, Clarence sang blind from birth, breaking limits to conquer huge stages. But behind the lights was a messy life, a tangled love history, kids out of wedlock, broken marriages, and claims of poor support tore his family apart. Career and personal stress led him to lean on friends and managers, often sparking clashes. Still, Clarence was a peak R&B icon, his voice carved into fans' hearts. Past his prime, Clarence Sr. kept recording and performing, but age and diabetes dimmed his draw. His family stayed rocky, with asset and rights fights flaring. At 89, he lives quietly in Alabama, rarely seen, leaving a music legacy and unsolved family knots. By 1999, Clarence Carter Jr., steeped in music blood, hit 34, but no rose path awaited. Instead of big stages, he struggled in small bars, little-known gigs in the U.S. South. Though he mimicked his dad's style, even singing patches to draw crowds, Clarence Jr. faded in R&B. The legendary father's shadow crushed his soul. Friends and kin said he battled depression and money woes, working odd jobs to get by. His life was a quiet fight between dreams and brutal reality. Now at 60, he stays low-key, shunning stage lights, leaving a big question. Can he step out of his father's shadow or stay lost in a legend's dark? 17. Jackie Wilson and Jackie Wilson Jr. Brilliant peak and grim tragedy of two music generations. Jackie Wilson, Mr. Excitement, stormed the scene with 1967's hit. Your Love Keeps Lifting Me higher and higher, ruling Billboard R&B and Hot 100. An R&B legend with explosive moves and a killer voice, his son, Jackie Wilson Jr., chased his dad's sound but lingered in small clubs, never making a big mark. In 1967, at 33, Jackie Wilson hit fame's peak, career soaring. But his personal life was wild chaos. Shot in his New York apartment by a jealous lover, a bullet near his spine left him wrestling pain and surgery. A broken icon, he faced not just physical scars, but a storm of extramarital affairs and at least 7 kids from different women. His marriage to Frida Hood rocked hard, unsalvageable. Worse piled on, in 1975, Jackie collapsed on stage at Cherry Hill mid-lonely teardrops. A sudden stroke stole his career and health. In a coma for 9 years, family and managers fought over assets and medical costs, a brutal, endless war. When he died in 1984, behind the glory was a torn family, full of conflict. His son, Jackie Wilson Jr., with his dad's music genes and lively style, couldn't escape that huge shadow. At 33 in 1990, his career circled small Detroit and Chicago clubs, never touching his father's heights. Comparison pressure, letdown from falling short, and money struggles kept him tense. Losing his dad and inner legacy battles strained ties with his mom and siblings. Jackie Wilson Jr. struggled quietly for nearly 3 decades, working side jobs to survive, before dying in 2019 for unclear reasons, leaving a big question about music's future and this family's lasting tragedy. 2 lives, 2 fates, a grand legend, and a faint shadow. 16. Eddie Levert and Sean Levert, the Levert family. Nightmare. Eddie Levert, the legendary lead of the OJs, ignited big stages with 1972's Love Train. Known for an emotional voice, he was an R&B movement icon. Meanwhile, his youngest son, Sean Levert, followed the music blood, making a mark with Levert in solo work, though never matching his dad. But behind the glory is a painful family tale of decades-long storms. In 1972, Eddie, 30, was at his career peak, but the cost was distance from family, especially Sean, who grew up feeling his dad's absence. Eddie buried himself in long tours, sold-out Apollo theater shows, and national TV, chilling the father-son bond. Fame brought temptations, wrecking his marriage, nights of parties, women aplenty, shaking his home with Martha to the core. Sean, under the weight of his granddad and brother Gerald, felt let down and self-doubt. By 1998, at 30, Sean's path wasn't bright. Levert cooled off. His solo tracks didn't explode as hoped. Worse, a scandal over unpaid child support for 2 kids from 2 moms hit hard. The press pounced, tarring his image. Money and custody fights cracked the family further. Sean's life slid into personal tragedy and brutal mental strain. The biggest shock for Eddie wasn't career dips, but losing both beloved sons, brother Gerald in 2006 and Sean in 2008. Sean died in jail days after lockup for child support debts, denied blood pressure meds, collapsing in panic before inmates. The Levert family sued the jail for poor medical care, turning Sean's death into a loud scandal. Eddie carries unending loss, music his only escape from a chain of family tragedy. 15. Ray Charles and Son, a brilliant music empire and a broken family journey. Ray Charles, the blind genius legend, ruled stages from Carnegie Hall to global tours, topping charts with Georgia on My Mind and sweeping Grammys. He built a cross-genre empire, founding Tangerine Records, an unmatched icon. But behind the shine was a stormy life of cracked marriages, 12 kids with 10 women, and wrenching addiction. In 1960, at 30, Ray rode his career peak, but his personal life was a mess. Packed schedules, all-night parties, and drug arrests haunted him like a ghost. While he blazed with energy on world stages, cracks with wife Della and side flings rocked the family. Cries of out-of-wedlock kids, money fights, and sleepless nights made his life an endless battle. Post-1960, Ray beat addiction and performed with fire until health failed. In 1977, he divorced Della, sparking piled-up clashes among kids and lovers over millions in assets. His 2004 death didn't end the drama, only igniting a fierce inheritance war. Ray Charles Robinson Jr., his son, carried his dad's giant shadow, pain just as big. By 1985, at 30, Ray Jr. struggled for his own stage light. Unable to escape his legendary dad, he sang in small LA clubs, never shining bright like him. No loud scandals, but loneliness, self-doubt, and a broken family's weight threw him into a mental spiral. From childhood to adulthood, he faced an absent dad, saw addiction and chaos. Though he couldn't match his dad's stage fire, he fought on in finance's dark and tense sibling ties. 14. Benny King and Benjamin Earl King Jr. Legendary father, son, lost in the dark. Benny King, an unmistakable name in music history, stormed charts and big stages across the U.S. Ex-Drifters member. He built a brilliant solo career, an R&B soul monument. But behind the lights were quiet battles, money scandals, and family strain. Benjamin Earl King Jr., his son, tried to carry the legacy but wrestled with his dad's huge shadow, quietly singing in small bars, facing loan pressure for decades. In 1961, at 23, Benny King blew up the world with Stand By Me, a song echoed for decades. From the legendary Apollo to U.S. shows, he was an undeniable star. But life wasn't smooth. Wed to Betty King in 1964, long tours and industry pressure pulled him from home. Royalties were a hotspot, clashing hard with managers and Atlantic, feeling robbed of his empire. No loud love scandals like peers, but his constant absence left kids growing up short, quiet wounds no one voiced. Through the 70s and beyond, Benny King fought money woes and fading health. His music dimmed as R&B shifted, label fights lingered. He died in 2015, leaving a grand legacy but a family with unhealed pain. By 1986, Benjamin Earl King Jr., also 23, bore his dad's giant weight. Singing in small New York and Northeast bars, he chased the spotlight, but stayed a faint shadow of Benny King. No scandals, no glory, just crushing mental strain. Friends said Benjamin Jr. wrestled self-doubt, irked by comparisons and money woes as traditional R&B faded to digital and new trends. Ties with his dad were steady, but Ben Sr.'s busyness left him without key guidance. When his dad died, Benjamin Jr. still lacked big success, turned to other work, and carried deep sadness for losing his life's monument. 13. Stevie Wonder and Kwame Morris, blind genius legend and a lost son. Crushed by his father's shadow, Stevie Wonder stunned the world, blind from birth yet a music genius. With classic hits and heaps of Grammys, he ruled Motown, owning big stages. His son, Kwame Morris, fought not to be swallowed by his dad's vast legacy, tiring to find his own path in a world too used to Stevie's name. In 1972, at 22, Stevie Wonder rocked charts with Talking Book. Superstition and You Are the Sunshine of My Life crowned him R&B's king, a living legend. But offstage, Stevie's life was a tangle. Divorce from Sarita, messy flings, all-night parties, quiet scandals. In 1973, a car crash nearly killed him. Stevie survived, but the aftershock lingered. Then kids from different moms emerged, including Kwame, never known as a second wonder. By 2010, Kwame, also 22, faced a different scene. Not on Madison Square Garden stage, he quietly played small LA bars. No cheers, no lights, just brutal pressure as people named Stevie. The father-son bond stretched thin like a breaking string. While Stevie flew to global shows, Kwame juggled studios and temp jobs to scrape by. No one knows his future plans, only that for years he's never escaped his great dad's shadow, a weight crushing his name and life. 12. Smokey Robinson and Barry William Borup. Robinson, Soul King falls to addiction out of wedlock. Son lives. Quietly, Smokey Robinson, soul of the Miracles and a Motown pillar, made the world bow with The Tears of a Clown. With a velvet voice and genius songwriting, he penned hits for The Temptations, Mary Wells, and himself. Meanwhile, Barry William Borup Robinson, his out-of-wedlock son, never truly stepped into the light. With a legend's blood, Barry's life was a long, quiet push. No stage, no glory. In 1970, Smokey Robinson, at 30, hit his peak. The Tears of a Clown ruled R&B and Hot 100 charts. On Apollo's stage, he dazzled, but backstage, life unraveled. Claudette, his wife from humble days, barely knew the man who swore forever to her. Smokey fell into an affair, birthing Barry William Borup Robinson in 1968. When Claudette found out, the family blew up. Clashes, betrayal, long silences, the line between glory and guilt thinned. Smokey stood in the spotlight, but inside was guilt he'd confessed decades later in memoirs. Aging, Smokey faced addiction, nearly dying from drugs in the 80s. Family broke, career stalled, he wrestled past mistakes. Barry, for over 2 decades, lived quietly. He turned to backstage work, once aiding his dad's legacy, yet tagged unofficial heir. By 1998, Barry, 30, struggled in music. No label backing, no media chase, he sang in small clubs, redoing dad's hits to hold fans. But all was shadow. Barry couldn't shake Smokey Robinson's out-of-wedlock son. He never complained, but his eyes hinted loneliness. Every career try faded before a harsh truth. Voice or passion, he'd never be Smokey. 11th, Percy Sledge and Percy Sledge Jr. Father becomes legend, son trapped in an uncrossable shadow. Percy Sledge melted America with an aching voice in When a Man Loves a Woman, a soul monument from one hit. But behind the glory were a cracked marriage, stolen royalties, and a life drowned in parties. His son, Percy Sledge Jr., chased music too, but stayed stuck in a race with no finish, living under his father's giant shadow. In 1966, at 26, Percy Sledge shot up overnight. When a Man Loves a Woman topped Billboard, turning a worker into a global star. But joy didn't follow. Control slipped. Marriage to Rosalie King cracked. Percy tangled in parties, booze, and endless women rumors. Worse, his contract robbed him. For years, he got no fair royalties for the song that made him. Percy reeled financially despite its airplay. While Dad ran U.S. shows, Percy Sledge Jr. grew in a cold home. By 1993, at his dad's fame age, Jr. played small bars, singing the old hit to cling to past light. But his career wouldn't lift. No scandals, no mess, just endless letdown from failing to match a legend. Money shaky, he took side jobs to feed his family. Percy Sr. struggled through the 70s, 80s, career sliding, money woes dragging. By the 2000s, liver cancer drained him. He died quietly in 2015, leaving a grand legacy and unhealed gaps with his son. Percy Jr. grieved the loss. Now 58, he lives low, holding Dad's memory, but weighed down lifelong by a shadow too big. 10. Wilson Pickett and Michael Pickett, father's glory left, son's tragedy. Inherited, Wilson Pickett was a blazing 60s R&B star, famed for In the Midnight Hour and Mustang Sally, a wild voice in life. His son, Michael Pickett, followed Dad's path but floundered, stuck under a legend's shadow, never escaping a sigh. In 1965, Wilson Pickett swept music like a tornado. Barely past 20, he topped charts with In the Midnight Hour, thundering stages with a storming voice. But offstage, chaos ruled. Pickett drowned in parties, drunkenness, affairs, violence, and arrests. Family broke, kids drifted, he chewed fame and loneliness alone. 30 years later, in 1995, Michael Pickett, born of a messy bond, stood on a small Georgia stage, aping Dad's old glory. But no hits, no lights big enough to pull him from Wilson's shadow. No fame, even notorious, but that quiet hurt worse. Michael bore the Pickett name, saw Dad die of heart failure, then fell into a family asset fight with strangers. 9. David Ruffin and David Ruffin Jr. A legend falls, a son lives in an unescapable shadow. David Ruffin, the Temptations' legendary voice, rocked the 60s with My Girl, hailed as a soul icon. David Ruffin Jr., his son, stepped into music craving to follow, but lived only as David Ruffin's son. In 1965, at fame's peak, David Ruffin was a Motown god. My Girl swept charts, his voice flooding stages from Apollo to global tours. But offstage, chaos reigned. Cocaine addiction wrecked marriage, he loved countless women, and his wild demands and fits strained the Temptations. By 1968, he was fired, starting a slide into drugs, jail, and endless falls. In 1991, he died of an overdose. A random limo driver took him to a hospital and vanished. Family fought, legacy shattered, no one fully knew what happened. 3 years on, David Jr., at 24, sang My Girl in Detroit bars to sparse, bored crowds. The David Ruffin weight crushed him. No scandals, no shine, just regret, emptiness, and pain from childhood neglect. For 3 decades, he fought to shed his dad's shadow. Too big, too messy, too haunting. 8. Otis Redding and Dexter Redding. One dies at the peak, one lives in his father's shadow. Otis Redding, soul's king, blazed at Monterey Pop and recorded the timeless Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Dexter Redding, his son, carried the Redding name but never broke from Dad's shadow. In 1967, Otis Redding peaked. At 26, he was a global sensation, voice tearing emotions apart. After a year touring Europe and the US, exhausted, he hit the studio, aiming to shift soul with new sound. No one foresaw his plane crashing into Lake Monona in fog days after recording a career changer. His body was pulled up to America's shock. Wife Zelma froze. Dexter, just 5, didn't grasp it, but that tragedy shaped his life. By 1988, Dexter, 26, Dad's death age, sang soul, bore the Redding name. But small clubs and thin crowds paled by his father's blaze. Dexter didn't slide, but never soared. Quiet family fights over music rights, being called Otis's son, not himself, and name pressure stabbed him for years. Dexter held firm, but lived in the dark of an absent yet ever-present dad. 7. Otis Clay and Mark Clay, father's radiant glory, son's lifelong dark trap. Otis Clay's booming soul voice hit glory with 1972's Trying to Live My Life Without You, marking history with R&B, gospel, and soul. His son, Mark Clay, stepped into music but never passed Dad's shadow, stuck between passion and stifling quiet. In 1972, Otis Clay stormed Chicago like a whirlwind. America knew him for a voice ripping pain from hearts. Shows flooded, his name rang out. But backstage, harsh contracts ate royalties. He pushed on, living passion, torn between family and stage. Mark, his son, grew amid endless trips, loving music via Dad's tapes, but missing closeness. By 2000, Mark hit the stage, Dad's history-making age. Unlike Otis, Mark played small bars, re-singing old tracks, begging to be noticed. No one cared beyond Otis Clay's son. When Otis died of a heart attack in 2016, Mark broke, not just for losing Dad, but never having him. Amid quiet legacy fights, Mark lived on in silence under a shadow too big. 6. Isaac Hayes and Isaac Hayes, Third, Legendary Glory, Next Generation Pain, and A Quiet Legacy War. Isaac Hayes, soul and funk's king, rocked America with Theme from Shaft, built Stax Records, and stood tall at 1972's Wattstax. His son, Isaac Hayes III, a talented Atlanta producer, tried walking Dad's huge shadow, building his name as Ike Dirty. In 1971, Isaac Hayes, 29, rode his career peak, wowing grand stages, grabbing Grammys, splashing cash on cars, capes, all-night parties. But private life tangled. Second marriage crumbling, out-of-wedlock kids surfaced, house full, but bonds cracked, and behind lights were sleepless debt and booze nights. 6 years later, he went broke, lost most assets, slid through broken ties until a 2006 stroke. 2 years on, he died. Death sparked a kids' war, Isaac III included, tearing family over money and music. Isaac III, 29 in 2004, struggled in Atlanta, keeping music alive, but dwarfed by Dad. He knew a chaotic childhood amid half-siblings. After Dad's death, Isaac III lost kin and hit an identity and cash crisis. Each track begged recognition, but fame stayed underground. At 50, he still strains to hold what's left of a legacy he never fully touched. 5. Barry White and Daryl White, R&B legends Glory and Family Darkness. Barry White, romantic R&B icon with a deep voice moving millions, ruled 1974 charts with classics like Can't Get Enough of Your Love Babe and You're the First, the Last, My Everything. The maestro of love shone on world stages. His son, Daryl White, chased R&B but struggled for his spot in small clubs from LA to the US West. Barry White's tale wasn't just glory, but family and health tragedy. Under sparkling lights, he fought soaring weight, high blood pressure, and chronic kidney issues. Marriage to Glowden James, once hopeful, crashed in storming fights as ex-lovers and out-of-wedlock kids demanded support and status. Clashes, distrust, and money stress felled him, leading to a 2002 stroke and death a year later. At 30, Daryl couldn't dodge Dad's giant shadow. He sang on the sidelines, pushing under Barry's faded glow, haunted by a split family, legacy tension, and abandonment pain. Daryl's life was a quiet struggle, unfinished dreams, and lasting dark after Dad's bright stage. Now, Daryl still battles family wreckage and a disputed music legacy. 4. Bobby Womack and Bobby Truth, Womack Jr., Chaotic Life and a Legend's Shadow. Bobby Womack, R&B soul icon, rocked with 1972's classic Across 110th Street, wowing Apollo and the world. His son, Bobby Jr., tried Dad's music path but wrestled a huge shadow, grappling with his own pressured life. In 1972, Bobby Womack peaked with Across 110th Street and fame from writing for the Rolling Stones, but peace eluded him. Marriage to Barbara Cook, widow of legend Sam Cooke, already controversial, shook when young son Vincent drowned, a tragedy cracking family in pain. Behind stage glory, Bobby sank in addiction, a chaotic life with out-of-wedlock kids, including Bobby Jr. In 1978, marriage to Barbara ended. Cocaine and booze arrests dragged on, pushing him to the edge. Bobby Truth Womack Jr. grew in that cracked family, tagged as a legend's son, bearing grief from a brother's death and Dad's wild life. At Dad's glory age, singing Dad's hits in small LA bars, Bobby Jr. never broke through. Career stalled, money tight, and family asset fights tensed. When Bobby Sr. died in 2014 of cancer and Alzheimer's, Bobby Jr. lost Dad but gained unavoidable weight, quietly enduring his own fight in a legend's shadow. 3. Al Green and Al Green Jr. Light and dark in a legendary family. Al Green, dubbed Prince of Soul, stormed charts with 1972's Let's Stay Together. His smooth voice, blending R&B, soul, and gospel, lit up stages like Apollo and Worldwide. His son, Al Green Jr., chased Dad, singing R&B and gospel in small Memphis clubs in the late 90s, unable to break Dad's shadow. In 1974, a horrific tragedy shifted Al Green's life. A jealous girlfriend poured hot grits on him, burning him badly, then died soon after. It sank Al into depression, lost and self-questioning, driving him to faith for salvation, becoming a pastor in 1976. He turned to gospel, found new success, but family tragedy lingered. Clashes over money, inheritance among kids, and ex-lovers painted a chaotic scene behind the glory. Al Jr. grew in a complex family, distant from Dad, crushed by constant legend comparisons. He wrestled money woes as music stalled, taking extra jobs to get by. Ties with Al Green hinted at mending but stayed tense, and this family's dark still cloaks today. Al Green Jr.'s life proves fame's cost. Dad's legacy not just light, but an inescapable load. 2. Rick James and Ty James, punk-funk empire and a chaotic inheritance war. Rick James, king of punk-funk, exploded with 1981's street songs, delivering hits like Super Freak. His son, Ty James, followed with R&B and hip-hop, but sank in the dark of Dad's name. In 1981, Rick James peaked, flooded by stage lights and cheers at Madison Square Garden. But behind it, life was unthinkable chaos. Drugs, wild parties, and cocaine arrests became steady pals. L.A. home bashes turned public scandal storms, family cracked, kin turned away. In 1991, a kidnapping and assault case jailed Rick over 2 years, fame crashing. Health tanked, strokes led to a 2004 heart failure death, cocaine in him, sparking endless shock and talk of the king's end. Ty James, raised in smoke and shouts, Dad often gone, floundered in small LA clubs. After Dad's 2004 death, Ty hit a messy power war, clashing over assets and rights to hits like Super Freak, Raging in Family. Economic and mental strain weighed heavy, Ty pushing to keep Dad's legacy and fight for recognition, his life full of tension and wordless fate. 1. James Brown and Daryl Brown, Funk Empire Falls and a Notorious Family. Shadow James Brown, Soul's godfather, blazed at 1965's peak with Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, Birthing Funk, upending music rules. His son, Daryl Brown, strove to follow, keeping funk alive in small stages and a pressured life. In 1965, at 32, James Brown dropped a history-making hit, rallying millions. But behind glory was unthinkable chaos. Multiple marriages bred a messy family of at least 9 kids. Booze, drug, and abuse rumors swarmed, marriages fell, fame loved, but scandals clung. Peak came in 1988, jailed for attacking police. Health slid, legal wars with wives and kids over assets bloodied his legacy. Daryl, his son, grew in chaos's dark. By 2000, at 32, Daryl lived in Dad's giant shadow, bearing nameless pressure from comparisons and duty to guard legacy. He played with Dad on small stages, fighting to keep the family name alive. James's 2006 death shocked, sparking endless legal wars, financial and mental weight crushing Daryl. Now, still in music, Daryl's trapped by a chaotic family, dark and a lasting fight to hold a legend's legacy. So, what do you think of these father-son tales? Who surprised you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video fun and want more Celebrity World stories, hit subscribe and the bell. I'll keep bringing gripping videos on the shadows behind the spotlight.